And so I knew that something interesting was happening to me. And I believe today that it was astral traveling. And I still do that sometimes now. But when I was younger, I was born very connected, like I said, to the other side. I had a near-death experience when I was a newborn.
Hello, beautiful people. Today we are going to learn about the Akashic Records. And I am very blessed to have with me Amber Radke. She is the Malibu medium. And for what I know, and I have experience for friends, she is the most amazing person that we could have here today to teach us about that. So it's an honor to have you here, Amber. And yeah, so my first question is always, how did you get reading Akashic Records? Because I don't think that's something that you grow up thinking you're going to do for life, right?
Right. No, definitely not. Thank you for having me, by the way, and those very kind words. Yeah, I'm very happy to talk to people about the Akashic Records and to teach them about what it is because it is still quite,
New.
hidden in a way in our where we live. And it's this incredible tool that I believe everybody can learn for themselves to help them transform and step into their higher self and manifest. So for me, I believe that I had an introduction to the realm of the Akashic Records when I was sometime probably in my high school years, like later teenage years. I had a dream. Now, I astral traveled a lot when I was younger, and I did have this natural connection with the afterlife, and I communicated with spirit, or I should say, spirit communicated with me. So I was a little,
Sorry,
can you hear me?
what do you mean when you say I astral travel so people can understand what was going
Yes.
on? Like, can you
Okay,
describe one
so
of those?
so for me, I would travel to other dimensions and I
Oh.
would travel to other locations. And it wasn't a dream, it was a real kind of like a visitation, if you will. So I would be very busy at night in these other realms. I would have these visitation communications with what I understood at the time as angels. Maybe they were my guides, maybe they were my higher self, maybe they were light beings. And so I had these very clear, it wasn't a dream because it was like real. It was like it was happening to me on a more real level, like I would experience my everyday life. And I believe today that it was astral traveling. And I still do that sometimes now. But when I was younger, I was born very connected, like I said, to the other side. I had a near-death experience when I was a
Oh.
newborn, and I don't know if that is why, because I
Mhm.
believe my near-death experience that I had when I was 39 was one of the things that opened my awareness to the Akashic Records.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of all over the place, but what I'll say is when I was probably around 17, I had an astral travel visitation into another dimension that just looked like a cosmic sky. And I was like in kind of space, and I was standing there, and there was this ancient book open in front of me. And nothing was said, but I knew it was something very profound, and I knew that it was something important, but I didn't know the name Akashic Records. But now looking back, I believe that that was just like this little kind of beginning initiation into showing me something that maybe wasn't going to come into my life until many years later.
Mhm.
So, like I said, I had a near-death experience when I was 39. So that was about 6 years ago now. And when I had this experience, I had my divine presence activated. So Archangel Michael came to me. This
Mhm.
was the same, by the way, condition or ailment or whatever you want to call it that caused my first near-death experience when I was around like 8 weeks old, which is asthma. And so I couldn't breathe, and my grandmother and spirit came to me, and Archangel Michael, and they guided me out of my body. But first, they breathed into my chest, and so I
Mhm.
kind of had this kind of like miraculous healing is what they told me it was. And I left my body and I kind of went through this tunnel, and my grandmother was there, and um, there was a being there that I believe was Mother Mary, and there was Archangel Michael, who was like my main guide. Now, he took me to the light of Source, and I became one with the light of Source. And so I had a complete oneness with
Wow.
myself and with Source. And many things happened during the NDE, but it was after that experience that my consciousness opened. My divine presence was activated, and I became aware of the Akashic records just by hearing this download of the name. It would just be like this pool, and it would just be this like download of like randomly I would think like, oh, the Akashic records, the Akashic records, and it just kept coming and coming and coming. Um, and so I opened the Akashic records one day, and I started to spontaneously channel the book of life. And a group of ascended masters came to me and they said that we're channeling to you the book of life. And they said, get 12 notebooks. And so I started to channel and write really, which is the wisdom of the Akashic records. And then from there, I started to do individual readings and then teach people how to access the Akashic records for themselves. One important part that I didn't say, that before the opening of the Akashic records, I also had an astral dream, or maybe I don't know how to explain it, but I woke up in the night and I was looking down at myself and watching like a movie, this happening, this scene. And there was three monks that were like, I think maybe they looked Tibetan monks or something like that. They had orange cloaks and a bald head. There was three of them standing at the foot of my bed and like talking amongst themselves and inspecting like me. And then they like were looking at my body. They came up to my head and they said, pour oil over your head in the morning. This is an initiation.
Oh,
So
wow.
I believe that who I'm channeling in the records, the ascended masters, are those monks that came to me and kind of started that process of opening my connection to the Akashic records.
Wow.
I know it's like,
That is a magical story. Like, wow. Because you really have to be very connected to be able to download all of that, right?
yes, it was, I think, like I said, the near-death experience opened this portal.
Mhm.
My consciousness was so expanded. I could hear people's thoughts. I was so psychic after that experience. I actually had a clear communication with my spirit guides as well. And I started to ask them questions all the time because it was amazing and it was fascinating. And so everything in my life, I would say, what should I do with this? What should I do here? What does this mean? And at some point they said, you're just as important and wise as we are. And they told me that they were going to step back. Now, these are my spirit guides that told me that, not that I was going to step back from channeling the guides and the records, but I was leaning on them too much. But I only say that because just to illustrate that for me, I just became a clear channel at that time. And so it has dissipated a little bit because I have to, from what I understand, the lessons I have to learn have
Mhm.
to come from me. And for everyone, we have spirit guides and we have the wisdom of the Akashic records, and they want to help us, and they do, but we can't completely rely on other guides and other beings to do like the inner work to evolve our
Mhm.
soul. It
So
has to
we
be
have to do
co-creative.
our work, right? They
Yes.
can guide us, but the work is from ourselves. That's what I am
Yes.
understanding. Yes.
Yes, because the only way like we can learn a lesson and integrate it and then implement it and apply it
Mhm.
is when it's within our own consciousness. even though our consciousness is interconnected with everyone, we still are an individual stream of consciousness. We still have like we're an individual spark of divinity. And so every time we expand our awareness and learn something, it affects like a ripple the person next to you and the collective. But again, you can't have someone else do it for you.
Yeah, you know, the part that you were telling about your first death experience when you were being born, right?
Yeah.
I think that touched me a lot and made me a little very emotional because I had a death experience. I was dying when I was being born. Like it
Oh,
was 6 months in my mom's womb. So I was not ready to be born, but I have so clear that moment.
yeah.
I know you're gonna feel it because I'm feeling it in my whole being. Yeah, and I wanted to be here. Like I remember asking them to, but at the same time, I do remember bringing, like, I know what I am supposed to do,
Yeah.
right? Is
Yeah.
wow, but it's the first time that I connect with that moment when you were speaking.
Yes.
Wow.
So just a little like expansion around that, which is really interesting. Um, I remember being in the hospital in the incubator or like in
Mhm,
this tent in this like little,
mhm.
it felt like a little box. I've had to work through some trauma there.
Yeah.
But my mom told me that when so I was like maybe 6 to 8 weeks old. I was a newborn, and she found me in my crib, blue. I wasn't breathing. And she lived very near the hospital in Los Angeles. And her instinct was, I will get her faster to the hospital than the ambulance, because she
Oh.
lived in near like Laurel Canyon or something, but it was just you zip down the mountains to Cedar Sinai. And she brought me to the hospital. But she told me that when she went into, she didn't touch the ground. She said that she felt that she was gliding into the hospital. She did, and of course you could say, well, maybe because she was nervous, but she says that there was angels helping her get me to where I needed to get, and that her feet didn't touch the ground, and that she just happened to find the right location to like hand her infant newborn to. Um, so I think, I've thought about it too, and it's interesting that you have this same experience, because I know that we do have possible exit points. And I think, it's interesting to think like, did I, on a soul level, kind of decide in that experience to stay? Obviously I did, but
Nice.
my whole life growing up, I felt like I was here for this purpose,
Yeah.
and I didn't know what it was for so many years. Like I said, 39 years old, I
Mhm.
completely had a rebirth. Archangel Michael told me that even. He said that they actually told me that after the first night of that near-death experience, he said, we're coming back to you because this is a divine intervention and you're going to have this awakening and rebirth. And so he came back to me. And I believe that they were the ones who aligned me to that higher purpose, because I was just not getting the memo and I was almost 40 years old. So they were just like, yeah, because they told me, you're a healer and this is what you're meant to do. And they really helped me tap into my mission. But I think that I was born with a mission, and I think we are all born with a mission.
Yes, totally. So the Akashic Records. Why we should go and let me tell you that I also had a regression past life therapy when I was in my 20s, like 30 years ago, and I saw the book. Like I
Oh,
didn't know at that time that was the Akashic Records, right? I
yeah.
just, when I was going into the past life, I remember she guided me and she made me look to this book. And it was so, in my vision, because I'm very visual, it was like big and old. And from there, I remember going to a past life, right? But at that time, nobody was talking about Akashic Records. So it was just like a regression. But I think I know which ones are when I hear right now people talking about them. But why we will tap into the Akashic Records. And they are helping us in healing our past or visualizing and believing in our future.
So the Akashic Records, like the reason why we want to tap into it is because it connects us to like our soul story. So who we are in that multidimensional self. So just a small part of us comes into the human experience, but our higher self has had all these experiences, right, in the past, in our past lives, but everything is happening now. So it's not just to heal our past, it's to really heal our future. So when you access a past life, you're actually aligned to that past life. And when you learn the lesson that maybe you didn't learn from that past life, now you're bringing that awareness of that memory or of that past life into your present moment, and you learn, you heal something, you transform it. It changes who you are in your consciousness, in your soul, so that it actually affects your future. But the reason why what I want to explain this to you is because from what they've told me, there is no such thing as past or future. Everything is happening now.
At the same
It's
time, yeah.
very hard to understand, right? Because we're like in this linear human experience. But so that's one reason why you would tap into your records, is to, tap into your past lives to see maybe if there's something that, is an opportunity for you to heal and transform that will help you, you know, free yourself from some limitation. But it's also a realm that helps you tap into your soul and your higher self, who you really are in your divinity, who you are in your light. And by doing that, it helps you evolve your soul. It helps you co-create and your mission in this lifetime. It helps you really evolve humanity as well. So it's this, this modality. There's so many different ways to work with it, because ultimately it's about healing and transforming, as a human now. But what you're healing and transforming is who you are in this multidimensional level. And once you really align back into that multidimensional state and you expand your consciousness and you can see more and you can tap into who you are, maybe as, somebody who's experienced life on other planets, like, your stars, like or who you like, you can tap into all experiences that you are experiencing now, right? So it opens your mind and it helps you kind of become your whole self. And then the ripple effect of you becoming your whole self and meeting yourself at that level changes your life, because then you're no longer doing things from that conditioned place. You're no longer, in the limited thinking and in the fear. And so you move forward in such a radical way. It's almost like having your own near-death experience and performing your own divine, activation. It's just this radical transformative experience.
What will be the difference between a past life regression itself or a quantum jumping with Akashic Records? Or is kind of
So
the same?
what do you mean by quantum jumping?
So quantum jumping, the experience that I have is, so you are gonna tap into different selves that you are, right? In other spaces or dimensions.
Okay.
So, and in the exercise or the meditations that I have practiced through quantum jumping, you just choose which one do you want to tap in, and then observe the person first, and then you become the person, right? Because the base is that there is one that is really real in another dimension. So you just tap into that person to bring to this reality certain characteristics that you want to have, and you have forgotten that you already have those imprints, right?
Yes. Okay. So I understand. So it's really the same thing.
Okay.
You're talking about two different modalities that are connecting you to an aspect of yourself, right? So
Yes.
I see it as the same thing. I know I had a QHHT session
Mhm.
with Jeroen DeWitt, who, we both know, actually, I had a experience where I tapped into a future aspect of who I am. And he brought me through kind of the option of these three doors and to go
Uh-huh.
100 years in the future,
200.
like 200 or 300 years, and then like 500 or 600 years. And my higher self led me in the middle door, which was like the 300 years. And so I met myself in that future, which I guess you could say is quantum jumping. And I was working for the Galactic Federation.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was overseeing the fallen Earth. And I was helping Earth not descend. My mission, which is me now, I mean, it's like future is now. So I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And so, but I was in this space shit, like it was, I don't know if it was a spaceship, but there was all these people, many, many layers, almost like an opera house of balconies. And we were all viewing Earth like a movie.
Mhm.
And then this is very interesting. I'll be quick, but this was so interesting because when I was viewing Earth, I was in time. And then I went outside of the Galactic Federation, like building, and I was outside of time. And I was in what they told me, or what I knew to be my eternal home, which was this gorgeous home made out of like white stone carved out of a cliff, the most beautiful architectural home. And I was this, almost like I looked like a Nordic being. And I was part of this, my one of my children was getting married to another, like, starseed lineage race, to align, to like create an
Oh,
alliance. And that's kind of all that I saw. And then I left that time and space. So in the records, you meet yourself, who you are. You can meet your future self, and with intention, and by asking, the question. So yes, it's the same
okay.
thing,
Okay.
just different modalities.
But thank you for sharing that because I think is I always said like I did my first regressions like 30 years ago and it was all practically past lives. I think nobody was talking about other dimensions. That was not an information that I think it was the right time for the planet. But I
Yeah.
think now it's beautiful to hear you because I have the experience in the sessions that I am doing as well. Like people is finding themselves in so many different kind of ways that the spirit can have an experience, right? Like I was an elf, like I come a lot
Mhm.
from the realms and you don't expect to have like the first time that I had like a different past life regression, like I went to other planets, I had a lot of, was that real, right? Like
Mhm.
rejection in the beginning until, yeah, no, it was very real. And then you recognize the beauty of your soul and how different can express itself. But I think it's very important to tell those stories so people can really like see that when they are able to tap into those places, right? And receive that information.
Yeah, our imagination in a way is the part of ourselves that helps us get out of the box. And it's almost like you can't see farther than what you allow yourself to see.
Ooh.
So you have to just be open to the possibility of, like, all possibilities. And like that's part of expanding your consciousness. So, we can facilitate self-lead expanding our consciousness just by asking the questions and like having the intention to see more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just to open ourselves, open our minds, but really open our consciousness. Um, and I know it's hard to believe. I mean, I question things sometimes. It's like, wow, like even when I have spirit come to me and it's like I can even see them sometimes, I question it because it's the natural human mind to
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
And
that
that's
was my
okay.
my question for you. Do you ever doubt?
So I think doubting is maybe a little different than I question.
Okay.
But I I trust. I
Mm.
have had for instance, the channeling of the Book of Life, which is the Akashic Records, the wisdom that came through was so elevated and so profound. I still read it and I learn something. For all these years. I'm integrating and learning one line and unpacking what that means. And the truth is, it's an easy way to know that you're connected to higher wisdom when you're receiving something that is feels like this elevated frequency, or it feels like, this aha moment. And so that's one way that you can know you're connected to the records. So yeah, I don't necessarily doubt, because trust is a really important part of channeling, of doing any psychic work. Really, where it's our intention with trust and faith that is creating that channeled portal. So we can connect to like lower awareness if we want to, but obviously that's not what we're doing. So there's like some mindset tools, which really is just having the intention to connect to higher wisdom, to light beings, for the good of you, for the highest good of you, and for the highest good of all. And as long as you have that intention, then you can just relax, knowing that what you receive is for the highest good of you and for all. And then if you really want to kind of question it, you can look at what you receive and you'll know quickly, like, wow, this is profound. This is loving. This is beautiful, because the wisdom is always non-judgmental and loving, although the guides do hold you personally accountable for, like they won't say to you, you didn't do that action if you did something that was maybe not in the highest good, but they're never derogatory or critical. They're just matter of fact.
Who is ready to tap in the Akashic Records? Do you think people are called to get into the Akashic Records, or like anyone should try? How do you think people get to you?
Well, there must be some sort of divine plan or connection, or something that, on an energetic frequency basis is aligning all of us who are having a similar mission and desiring a purpose to expand consciousness, in a high, like towards the higher dimensions. I think that as long as your intention is loving, then anyone, I would say, should and would want to connect to their Akashic records. If you have a desire to awaken, to expand, and to connect to higher frequencies, higher dimensions, to co-create the new earth, which is one of the things that the guides talked about. Like, that's really why I'm here, I think, to
Tell
help.
me more about it. Because I know we are in the transition from third to fifth dimension or other dimensions.
So the new earth is being created now within our consciousness. So more and more people are coming together, like me and you and Jeroen and anyone who wants to read their records, and people are being called to their purpose, right? They're being called to this collective mission to co-create the new earth, which is just the embodiment of holding a higher consciousness. Now, I believe that from what I'm getting from the guides, that it's happening now. It's like people can operate in this new earth consciousness now on this planet. So it's just a matter of awakening and expanding. And it's like the natural progression of evolution. But at the same time, I do believe these higher guides, like I work also a lot with these guides who call themselves the blue beings, and they're a collection of like starseed, beings who are helping planet Earth, because I think that they do look at us and they see, that a lot of us have become so disconnected from our divine essence, and, the fallen Earth is what I was shown in my future life. So we are being helped by people, the Galactic Federation, to like say, like, okay, planet Earth, you're not really aligned with who you really can be, right? Who we really are, right? Like I think we've maybe steered away from our true essence as like a collective. So we are being helped. And I maybe just the name of a new earth is the name that they're calling it, that because many people are coming to this awareness of co-creating a new earth, but it was new to me when it was first channeled to me.
But is that a place for you, how you see it, or is more a mind conscience state?
Okay, so this can get complicated in my understanding and the way that I can explain this. You know how we co-create our reality, and all dimensions exist within us. And so it's our awareness in our present moment that creates our reality. So I believe it's happening now, almost like an overlay. Like when you are operating in that consciousness, that higher consciousness, you're experiencing a different reality. So I believe that it's almost like we are all here as these beings now, but we're experiencing things differently. So maybe you can say, it's a new place, because I've asked myself that question too. Is it an actual physical, like different earth? And I don't have all the answers to that. I have a lot of channeled information that I actually don't even always remember that I've gotten, and I've asked these questions, but I believe it's almost both, if that makes sense. It's here and now, and it's being created.
Wow. Yes, no,
It's
am
like
right with you.
mind-boggling to understand.
No, I'm right with you, but I think we are going to understand more as we go, but I think we all are in the process of trying to let go everything that doesn't belong there, that is not going to serve us anymore. And I think it's part of all the things that we see in the world right now, right? All the darkness that is coming up is because it can move to the fifth dimension, right?
Exactly. So actually, there's an acceleration of how we perceive time, because as our frequencies rise to meet the vibration of a higher dimension, we experience time faster, and we actually see more, and we experience our shadow. So we see our shadow, the people and the places and the circumstances that are no longer in alignment with that higher vibration come to light for an opportunity to heal and transcend, not to punish us, but in a way it's timelines splitting, because it's like in this here and now new earth, things, people, circumstances that are no longer of the light are not, they're going to come up to the surface, like I said, to have a choice. Like, are you going to, which timeline will you be a part of? Because of free will, it's all of our choices.
Ooh, that's cool. So going back to the Akashic Records, is there any readings that you have that it really touched you that you can share with us? There was really, really like, wow.
So many, and it's hard to say details because of,
Of course, in
confidentiality, but
general.
I'll say, like, I love when I experience, and this happens a lot. Okay, so I I'm very grateful to witness the quantum shifts that happen in a reading, so that energetically I might connect with someone even over Zoom in a reading, and I will witness them at the human level that they're in, but then at the end of the reading, they'll be a completely different frequency, and embody a completely different energy, and I can feel that alliance with them meeting their soul and their higher self. So, as a practitioner, it's very beautiful to witness the shift in people. It's very, rewarding on very many levels, but I, for most of my readings, before the people will ask me the question, I will be channeling already from the guides why they're here and what their question is. And I've learned to allow myself the permission to speak that and share that with my clients. And then it's very interesting when they're like, yeah, that's why I'm here and that's my question. I'm like, oh my gosh, and so it's just what you realize is within consciousness, you just become so connected to others that you're just tapping into almost like mind reading, like you're tapping into this unity. So when you read for someone else, like your souls kind of merge and you go into this other realm where all wisdom exists. And then when you walk out of that type of reading, you take away with you this new knowing that, oh, you know what? We're all connected and I have all answers within me. Like, and so it's very rewarding. But as far as like, I know what you're trying to ask for is a specific reading. I can share this with my dad. He was one of the first readings that I did, and he has a really painful condition. And when I did the reading for him, it was really profound because they were channeling specific names of doctors for him to see for his condition. And they actually shared with me the name of the doctor who had created this device that he had just surgically had in his body to help him. And so that was the first reading I did for someone else. And so that was profound because afterwards he was like, how did you get these names? I'm like, I didn't get these names. The records got these names. And then he was like, did you know that name that you told me created this device? So it's times when you have the proof of something like that can help you trust and believe from this deep embodied level that just makes you want to keep going and further and further. And again, it just allows you to see how connected we all are. And it's not just me that has these experiences. When other people read their records, they're also able to have these types of, experiences too, that allow them to trust the wisdom that's available to us.
For a person, because I think you teach as well other
Yes.
people. So do you have to be able to channel to be able to read the Akashic records, or a person, because not everybody's a channeler, right? Or
Right.
everybody is, I don't know.
Well, that's a good
Yeah.
question. We all are divine channels. And really what that is just learning the universal language, which is energy. So how to read energy in that subtle language. So you don't have to come to the table being a psychic medium or a channel. I teach people how to connect to the higher awareness, how to connect to the guides. And it is learning a new language. Some people learn it faster because you're not listening to your mind. You're channeling beings. And so it can take some practice, and channeling is part of it. But I believe anybody can learn it. And I've had that experience. I've taught many people and how to read their records. And so some people get it right away, some people don't. And then, I help guide people to understand if they're getting the information from their own mind or from the guide,
Correct. Yeah.
because there can be, that difference. But once you're on the journey of reading your own records and you've like staked that claim, however long it takes is still this beautiful journey. And it's still so rewarding because it's like the reason why I love teaching people to read their own records is because it's this lifelong tool that you have in your own back pocket. And for me, like I'm reading my records all the time, but I say reading, but more so I'm accessing the higher consciousness, the higher wisdom that's there. And I don't think that I could do what I do, teaching, living my mission, and stepping into my higher self and not letting the fear and the insecurities overwhelm me, like how I lived the first half of my life, if I didn't have the tool to unravel my conditioning and to transform over and over and over again those limited beliefs, because it's like I had a divine activation, but I still have to transform these limited beliefs. I'm still human, obviously. So we have to have something to help us to self-lead transformation and awakening back into our true essence over and over and over again, in order to like really co-create our dreams and desires from that place of alignment with who we really are. And so, yes, you have to channel in some ways, but it's once you channel the guides in the records, you start to channel outside of the records. And really all channeling is just communicating with energy. And we do that already. But
Mm.
now what you learn is you learn how to do it with intention. And so that expands who you are on a human level as a whole. So you're no longer just like, oh, I'm reading my Akashic Records. You're like, no, I'm reading my Akashic Records, but now my consciousness is expanded. And now outside of my records, you start to tap into energy and reading energy and becoming aware of so much more. So it is a profound experience that changes who you are.
So beautiful to hear you. How do you balance so that between being like here high and being human at the same time and really enjoying 3D?
Oh, that's such a good question. I'm laughing because it is a balance. I have a Pisces moon, and so I'm definitely like easily in these other dimensions, and I have to ground and I have to balance. I crave humanness, especially when I'm like working, channeling, teaching. I'll have that natural desire to have some balance back in my life. And so um, I just allow myself to have that balance and just to kind of shut the door to like expanded consciousness, at all time, because the more you expand your consciousness, the more integrated it is within you. It's who you are, but you don't
Right.
have to constantly seek to gain knowledge and all the time and this higher wisdom, because yeah, it just can become like too much. So I just allow myself to be really human sometimes and turn it off. I'm a mom, I have teenage boys, they keep me really human. And
They remind you.
yeah, they remind me, and they're just like, what are you doing, mom? I have one son who wants to channel and like, you're too young. And then I have another son who is all about logic, and he's like, I don't know what you're doing. um but yeah, like it's okay to be human. We're actual, it's funny that even we separate it because we're spiritual beings. So it's like we're never not spiritual beings. But when I say it's okay to be human, I mean like it's okay to watch Netflix and to just go run errands and, not feel like you have to do spiritual things all the time.
No, totally. And it's funny because I have a daughter, and when she was being born, I remember thinking by myself, like, I'm so spiritual, right? That I will have a mini Gandhi. But no, right? That is the one that is the logical. And, she
Yeah,
wanted to be a cheerleader, and they
I
come
know.
with their own agenda, right?
Totally. I know. And then it's like, but they chose us and we chose them,
Yeah.
and we don't know what they're going to evolve into.
Ooh, I like that.
And I think that we come with a personality,
Yes.
right? And
And,
yet,
and yes, and you don't feel like that reflects when you tap in the other, like the soul is always the same.
okay, so I've had that same question too, and I believe that we do have that essence,
Yes.
that's a spiritual essence that is still part of us, like across time and space, and even
Mm-hmm.
when we're in this personality. But I do feel like there's certain possibly like egoic personalities that maybe we're stepping into in each lifetime that's different, like that maybe support our essence, or maybe we just choose them to experience that. I don't know. Um, but I think that we do have like a signature frequency, right? That is a culmination of like where we're at within our consciousness and what our soul's interests are. Like I was also an artist, like I have a degree in fine arts, and I I feel like it's part of me. Like I feel like I came to this earth drawing. My mom said I was just drawing and painting, and like I feel like that might have been developed over
Mhm.
time. But then it's like maybe in another expression of who I am, I'm going to be a singer. And,
Correct.
and so yeah, I don't know.
Mm.
Um, it can become like we want to know all the answers, to everything.
Yeah,
But I
but like
think,
I have the experience to, like I remember when I saw my life as an elf, that it was very meaningful because I was very confused about my feet, right? Like they were
well,
elf feet. Um, what I felt though that remind me to look at that life, it was that my soul has been always funny. Like I have like this essence, like you said, I could be an elf, or I could be a woman in other life. Wherever I've been, if I am a singer or an artist or an engineer, but the fun part, like the imprint of my soul, I have seen it that stays. And I see it also with people when they go through lives. Like there is a certain, like you said, the energy that they have is very similar. It doesn't matter the expression of the soul.
yes, and I believe that completely. I know that in one of the past lives I went into, I was kind of like a Native American, or not, I'm sorry, not Native American. I was indigenous, like a medicine man, and I was very spiritually connected to nature, and I'm so connected to nature now too. So I, it's really fascinating to start to explore what your passions and interests are, and then to kind of see in your past lives, like, how you maybe used those passions and interests. Like I know I loved piano when I was growing up, and I just never learned it to be a pianist. But I also saw myself in a past life where I was a pianist. So it's almost like we come maybe knowing like these certain interests, and maybe we don't develop them. But I
Yeah.
just like, I had this connection to the piano, and I still listen to classical music, So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's very important point because it's not just going through loop, because many people reach out to me to find trauma, right? Where everything started. But many times we can also go and find our gifts that we been
Absolutely.
not developing because we are not aware of that, right? From other civilizations and the knowledge that we gain there, that all can show up in this life just if we tap into that, right? But that's another part that people don't expect to find when they do Akashic Records, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's actually a huge part of like what I'm interested in teaching and doing in my own life is the expansion part of it, the co-creation part. So you can go to your records with a struggle and transform that struggle, but you can also just go to the records with a desire of like, how can I co-create this and embody this desire? Or, depending on the questions you ask, the questions are what unlocks the wisdom. So if
Ooh.
you're like, I love this. How can I develop that more? Or I love that I have a passion for this. Where, on my soul level, did I, have this passion, and how did I, utilize it? And so it's just the question. So if you want to go into the records with like co-creation, expansion, and manifestation, like absolutely go. You just start wherever you're at. You don't have to just transform struggles. But when you do transform struggles, what I teach people to do is when you get to that neutral place where you're like, okay, I accept who I am within the struggle. I see it in a new light, and you're no longer affected. I always teach people how to to ask questions that are more expansive, so that it's like, how can I move forward in my highest expression without this struggle? Or it's like, you get into that place of alignment, but the co-creation and the transcendence of, or the expansion of consciousness is like, what else? What next? Like, how can I evolve and expand who I am? It's always about expansion. So there's like, even with the course that I'm teaching, I have my next round of teaching people how to read the records is called Akashic Academy. I changed the name of my course. So I'm like, what is it called? Akashic Academy. And the way that I like the lens and the approach of how I teach people or explain what they're going to learn is not just how to transform limitations, but how to co-create their life, how to co-create their highest purpose and plan. So it's all for me really about co-creation.
How about so if we tap in this life, we are in this life and we tap in another one that something big has happened to us, right? Can you change the outcome in another dimension, changing here, being aware here?
So I don't believe that we're like erasing the past. But at the same time, like, the collapse of timelines is kind of maybe, I guess, how I can explain it. Like, so we have all these different aspects of our self that are experiencing different timelines or different things. And then in our awareness, let's say we're tapping into an aspect, a stream of consciousness, and we're witnessing it and we're viewing it. And let's say it's traumatic. And we witness it and we view it from, let's say, a higher perspective. And by doing that, it's not necessarily, I don't think, erasing or changing the experience of what's happening, but it's by witnessing it from that higher perspective and maybe learning, your lesson, you're collapsing that timeline for a moment so that you're changing maybe how that expression of you and that timeline moves forward. And so it's everything is interconnected. So like, if your awareness is shining, if you're shining awareness on an aspect of you who experienced something from an empowered lens, then you're helping co-create that timeline in a higher timeline, because you're understanding, or you're learning a lesson, or you're seeing that in a new light, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think what I am understanding, and it totally makes sense, is that, for instance, you have this life, could be past, although we know it's linear, right? And then your lesson was to be unstuck, right? So, but if you are repeating in this life in a different way, in the one that you are conscious, is because you didn't understood really the message, what was the lesson, the print that you needed to learn, right? So then
Yeah,
when you become
in a
aware
way.
of that, you can release both, correct?
Yes. And I don't believe that we're impacted by all expressions of ourselves. I believe that we have like these purposes and missions to achieve, like, let's say, in this experience or expression of me in this human life, and I might be impacted by another expression of myself. So what I'm saying is that everything is interconnected and affected, but I don't know that we're being affected by everything that has ever happened to us. That's my personal belief. I believe that it's like we're being affected by the things that are relevant to what we're experiencing.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, that is like, I love it.
Which is why, and I'm going to say this, which is why when people come to me in a reading and they're like, just tell me about my past lives, like, just what's the most important past life? And nope, I'm not there. Like, I will say, why? I need to know what's happening within you now, what's on
Mhm.
your heart, what's on your mind, where you're struggling, because that is the pinpoint that is going to open up the doorways to
Correct.
what you need to hear and heal. And the Akashic guides too. I can't imagine an Akashic practitioner and Akashic guides just spewing information out and saying, you're this, you're that, and this is what happened to you. And because it's just not relevant, it's very empty.
Correct.
It
Yes.
has to be your struggles and your heart and your
Yes.
passions and what you're co-creating in this life is going to be what brings up what you need to know in
At
your
this
book of
moment.
life.
Yes. Ooh, I love it. No, it's unbelievable. I had another question around that, but I think it went away. So I hear you're gonna start a podcast as well. Can you tell me more about that?
Oh, so I do have a podcast already for I think almost a couple years now, but I just recently changed the name to it and kind
Oh,
of
it's
did
the
like a
name.
rebrand. So it was called Your Light is Fearless, and now it's just called the Malibu Medium Podcast. And I'm also starting my own YouTube channel called the Malibu Medium Channel. And that's all of this has just been happening. It's happening this week. So I think like literally today is the first episode that I'm going to air on my YouTube channel, which is the Malibu Medium.
What is your intention for the next years in the work, in the service that you are providing for all of us?
My intention is to keep teaching, to work more in person, possibly like with community. I might be doing a retreat. Um, and I think that you know, in my teaching, I just want to reach as many people as I can to empower them to learn how to read their own records. That's where I'm really passionate about right now. Is not I've stepped away from doing so many individual readings, and I am really focused more on teaching people how to read their own records as a practice to help them manifest, you know, what their soul, their highest purpose, their highest plan, their dreams and desires. So what's beyond that, I'm not sure. It's a good question. It's something for me to think about more. I just, like I said, I have my YouTube channel, I have my courses. I'm kind of just pouring all my energy into that, and I'm just going to allow that to evolve and expand. Like I feel like I'm such a baby at where I'm at in my mission, and yet I feel so old. So I'm like I just sometimes feel like I'm trying to do as much as possible and still have the human balance,
Yes.
which I think we all need. We can't just, even if it is a higher mission, we can't go, go, go all the time.
Mhm.
So sometimes that can be difficult, but yeah.
And then where people can find you if they
So,
wanna.
well, like I said, I do have a podcast called the Malibu Medium Podcast, a new YouTube channel coming called the Malibu Medium Channel. You can go to my Instagram at Malibu Medium or my website, themalibumedium.com. And yeah, if anyone's wanting to read their own records, I do have a new
Mhm.
online course to teach you how to read your records and transform your blocks and to co-create. That's again my main passion, to help people learn how to co-create their life. And that course is starting April 12th, I believe. You can find the information on my website or on my Instagram at Malibu Medium.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been magical to hear you.
Thank you.
No, I'm like, thank you. I hope we keep connected and wonderful things. And yeah, thank you so much. And thank you everybody that is gonna listen to us and everything we can share today. I think it's been inspired. And yeah, thank you so much. And if you
Thank
haven't
you for having
subscribed,
me.
no, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. And see you next time. Thank you.